You know that one person who remembers rewinding a VHS tape, waiting for dial-up internet to stop screaming, burning a CD with exactly 12 songs, and now checks 3 different apps before deciding whether they can afford groceries? The one who had an offline childhood, an increasingly online adolescence, and an adulthood where every year seems to bring a new crisis, subscription, password, or reason to update their resume? Yeah, there is a good chance they were born in the 1990s. And if that is you, welcome. You are about to feel very seen. Being a 90s baby does not mean you are permanently trapped in nostalgia. It does not mean your entire personality is Pokemon cards, low rise jeans, and remembering when YouTube had no ads. And it definitely does not mean you are immature because a song from 2004 can emotionally destroy you in 4 seconds. Today, we are breaking down the psychology of people born between 1990 and 1999, a group that grew up standing between two worlds, not fully analog, not fully digital, old enough to remember life before constant connection, but young enough to be expected to adapt to every new version of it. Now, 90s babies is not one official psychological generation. Someone born in 1990 and someone born in 1999 did not have identical childhoods. One may identify more with millennials, the other may feel closer to Generation Z, but many of them share something important. They built their identity while the rules of friendship, privacy, work, and success were changing around them. For some generations, technology arrived as a tool. For many 90s babies, it arrived as a second environment. At first, the internet was somewhere you went. You sat at a family computer, you logged on, you logged off. Sometimes you were forced to disconnect because someone needed to use the phone. Then the internet stopped being a place you visited. It became where friendships happened, photos lived, homework was submitted, jobs were found, and popularity could be measured in likes while your identity was still developing. Psychologists call part of this a cohort effect. Stripped of all the academic language, it means people who grow up through the same major social changes can carry similar psychological fingerprints. Not because everyone becomes the same person, but because they were learning the game while someone kept replacing the board. First, success meant doing well in school, then it meant going to university, then it meant building experience, then it meant creating a personal brand, networking online, answering messages instantly, protecting your mental health, and somehow saving for a home whose price increased while you were reading this sentence. That constant adjustment can create a very specific pattern. Adaptable on the outside, tired on the inside. Many 90s babies became unusually good at translating between worlds. They remember calling a friend's house and speaking to their parent first, but they also understand the emotional politics of being left on read. They learned patience by waiting 20 minutes to download one song. They also became impatient enough to treat a 4-second loading screen like a personal betrayal. But there is another layer. Growing up between offline and online life changed how many 90s babies experience identity. In childhood, embarrassing moments could disappear. A bad haircut lived in one photograph hidden inside a drawer. An awkward comment might be remembered by 6 classmates and then slowly forgotten. Then social media arrived, and identity became public, permanent, and editable. You are not only becoming yourself, you are learning to watch yourself become yourself. Which photo should I post? Why was I not invited? Why did everyone else seem happier, more attractive, more social, and somehow already successful at 19? Psychologists call this social comparison. In simple terms, your private life starts competing with everyone else's highlight reel. And let's be honest, the early internet was not designed with anyone's nervous system in mind. It handed teenagers a public scoreboard and said, "Good luck. Also, your ex can see everything." For some people, this created strong self-awareness. They became emotionally observant, culturally flexible, and quick to understand how they were being perceived. But for others, that awareness became self-surveillance. They learned to rehearse messages, to delete posts that did not perform well, to make their lives look effortless while quietly wondering why adulthood felt so much harder than they had been promised. Most 90s babies were not born cynical. Their nervous systems learned uncertainty through repetition. They were told, "Work hard and you will be secure." Then they lived through recessions, rising costs, unstable job markets, a global pandemic, and a work culture that somehow expects both gratitude and constant availability. They worked hard and discovered that hard work and security were apparently no longer in a committed relationship. That changes the way a person sees effort. Many 90s babies were raised to believe their choices controlled the outcome. Study, be responsible, build a career, do the right things. But adulthood showed them that timing, housing costs, layoffs, algorithms, and economic conditions matter too. So they'll often live in a strange middle ground. They still believe in effort, they just no longer trust the promise attached to it. This may explain why humor became such a useful coping tool. A person can say everything is fine while sharing a meme of a cartoon dog sitting inside a burning room. Not because they do not care, because turning anxiety into a joke gives a nervous system somewhere to put it. But nostalgia may be the strongest emotional pattern of all. The old cartoons, the sound of a PlayStation starting, a school computer room, a flip phone snapping shut, a song downloaded from LimeWire that may or may not have also destroyed the family computer. Psychologists often describe nostalgia as a source of self continuity. Stripped of the academic language, nostalgia helps the person you were and the person you are feel like they still belong to the same story. When the world changes too quickly, familiar memories become emotional landmarks. They remind you that there was once a version of life that felt slower, smaller, and easier to understand. Not necessarily better, just more contained. Okay, let's pause because nostalgia has a darker side too. There's a difference between replaying an old song because it reconnects you with yourself and replaying the past because the present feels impossible to enter. One is comfort, the other is grief wearing a vintage t shirt. And some 90s babies carry another quiet pressure, the feeling that they are running late, late to buy a home, late to settle down, late to choose the perfect career, late to become the stable adult they assumed they would naturally turn into by 30. But many of the milestones they compare themselves to were built for a different economy, a different culture, and a different timeline. The map changed. That does not mean you failed to follow it. You might be sitting here realizing that being born in the 90s shaped you more than you thought. Or you may be realizing that this experience feels completely foreign because your childhood happened on another side of the digital divide. Neither perspective is superior. They are simply different psychological adaptations to different versions of the world. For many 90s babies, the real strength is not nostalgia. It is translation. They learn to exist without constant technology and then they learn to live inside it. They learned old rules, watched those rules collapse, and kept adapting anyway. They can appreciate convenience while missing privacy. They can want success while questioning the system that defines it. They can laugh at their exhaustion and still keep searching for a life that feels genuine. So, if you were born between 1990 and 1999, you are not overly nostalgic. You are not failing adulthood. And you are not confused because you cannot decide whether the internet saved your life or ruined your attention span. You grew up on the bridge between two worlds. And sometimes the people who live on bridges become the best at understanding both sides. So tell me, what is the most 90s baby thing about you? Drop your experience in the comments and subscribe to Mindline Lab for more psychology behind the generations, habits, and emotional patterns that quietly shape who we become.